Hello and good morning. I'm Natalie and today we're going to be making an Easter basket card. So I'm going to be working with the ScanNCut and I have the SDX 1200, so the designs I'm going to be using today may or may not be available on all the models. So don't be afraid to say hi and let me know that you're watching, and we're going to dive on in. So if I switch view to the ScanNCut, let's just see if I can get that a little bit level. You can tell my ScanNCut's moved a bit. Okay, so I'm going to go into pattern and I'm going to create basket now. You might be tempted to go, right, okay, let's go into our designs and go from there. But should we do something a little bit more interesting? Maybe break it down into basic shapes. So this is how we can start to learn to create our own cut files. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to go into basic shapes. And I'm going to start off by building a basket. So just one. So let's go down and we want a semicircle. It doesn't matter that it's the wrong way up for what we want. We can rotate it after. But what you do want to take a look at is those sizes. Now let's say you want to work in millimetres instead of inches or vice versa. We can go into the settings on this screen and we can just change. The other control on that screen, very quickly, is your pattern interval. And what that means is the space it's put in between shapes on the mat. But at this point, it doesn't really matter because we're going to move around everything anyway. Okay, so we're looking at about 10 centimetres wide and about 5 centimetres deep. And that's kind of big enough for what I want. So this is going to be quite a compact little card. So let's add that onto our mat. Now, if it was round the right way, then you might want to increase that number so that you have two. But while we're doing this first kind of building stage, we'll work on just one copy. I'm going to rotate that round 180 degrees so that we can see it. And it's up the right way. Next, we're going to go OK, OK again, OK again, and we're going to go to add pattern. Now we could go back into our basic shapes and choose a thin rectangle, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to very quickly pop into our borders. So given that this is going to be quite a decorative little piece, we might prefer to do something like this where we've got a bit of shape to our design. Now this is going to come in so it's more or less the full width of the cutting mat, and it's about 2 centimetres tall. So we kind of need to tweak that a little bit to get it where we want it. So first of all, I'm going to press that ratio button. That means we can alter our height and our width independently. I'm going to take that width down to about 10 centimetres. Okay. Now, we're keeping this at our 2 centimetres, so we've got kind of a nice fluted edge now, rather than it being scalloped as such. And I need 2, so I'm going to increase that number, and when we go set, it's going to pop it onto the mat. So now I'm going to drag this down, go to edit, object edit, and let's rotate that around. So because I don't have a precise figure in mind for that rotation, we can just do it in 10-degree increments until we get somewhere that we're happy with it. So I quite like that there. let's move my basket down a bit and see whether we still like it. So it could do with being a little bit shorter. Now this one up here, we could go and rotate it the same way, but for now I'm going to take that back out just because I want to resize this one. So rather than having to do 2 sets of resizing, we can just work on that one and then get a copy. So let's shrink this up a little bit. Okay. And we're just going to tweak that. And now we can go to number and duplicate it. And we can use our flip button to mirror it. And you might choose to kind of have it so that they merge into one at the top, which is going to give you a nice strong shape. Or we can have it so that they're kind of touching. But I think for this one, to make it nice and simple, let's merge. So I'm going to go OK, into multi-select. I'm going to select our 2 handles. Now we can see that it's slightly wonky. That's okay, because we can get the machine to fix that for us. So if we're going to move a line and a line to top, that's going to pop those 2 shapes level. We can go OK, OK, into object edit, and we can weld those handles together. So far so good. I'm going to go OK. Now we can also weld that to our basket, but before we do, what we want to do is have a copy of this basket shape. So if we need to refer back to it at any point, we'll always have it. So let's tap on that first. I'm going to duplicate that shape and pop it over to the side of my map. And I'm going to do the same for my handles. So number, duplicate, OK, and pop that over to the side. So now I'm going to go back into multi-select. I'm going to tap off, so that means that nothing is selected. I'm going to use my window select and drag that in. Go OK, and that's going to select the bottom of the basket and the handle. Move a line and to the centre so that we know our handles are sitting in the centre of our basket. And then we can merge those together. So OK, OK, oh, and merge that together. So now we have a solid basket and the details to be able to decorate on top. So if you want to do a layer that's going to kind of be your support underneath, you could duplicate that one as well so that you have that to refer back to. So I'm going to go OK, duplicate that one and pop that one down there. So now we have our kind of decorative shapes and the start of our card base. Now what I need is a mirror that's going to sit underneath that so that I can have like a little folded base and my basket's going to sit very nicely. But at the moment, if we were to mirror this, it's going to joint to this side, which isn't what we want. So what we need to do first of all is we're going to go into rotation and we're going to rotate it 90 degrees. We're going to go to number, duplicate it, we're going to flip it, and then we've got something that looks like this. So let's move these pieces out of the way for now. So now what we want to do is select those 2 shapes and we want to make sure that they're level. The gap in between almost doesn't matter. You can make that gap as big or as little as you want. But we do need it so that these 2 line up. So go to move, align, and to the top. Okay. we're going to go OK, OK again, and we're going to go to add pattern, basic shape, and we just want a rectangle, and we don't need it to be very big, so I'm just going to shrink that down a little bit and add that onto the mat. So now I'm going to drag this over the top. We can go into edit, multi-select, and we've got those all selected. OK, move, align, and again we want to make sure that it's all sitting on that central point. OK, but we also want to have it distribute as well. So if we do that, our rectangle's going to pop into the middle. We can go OK, OK, and then we're going to weld those together like so. So we can go OK, and we have our card base. So there's your shaped card base, and we've got our decorative pieces, but there's going to be a few extra bits and pieces we're going to want to add to that. However, my advice would be at this point is to save your design. So before we go too far, we're going to go back to our kind of main screen. We're going to go save, and you have the choice here of saving it to the machine, to your USB memory stick if you've got that plugged in, or we can send it over to Canvas. Now I'm going to send that over to Canvas, and it's going to say save successful, and that's going to sit up in the cloud until such time as I'm ready to download it. Now in the background I'm just going to open up Canvas and just load that in. So do say hi and let me know that you're watching, because I'm not sure whether the software is necessarily connecting right. Just let me know. So while that's opening up, we could also add a few other details to this kind of layout. So one thing you might want to do is add a border on that's going to go across this semicircle. You might want to add some kind of fill texture. So this is another thing to bear in mind, is that you can still fill that shape even though you're going to be cutting it out. So you can draw, you can foil, so you don't feel that you're tied into doing one or the other. You can do both to a shape, and especially when you are working directly on machine like this. So let me just import that in so that I have that saved on my machine, or rather on my computer. And I'm going to grab a cutting mat. Now I did do a little bit of retacking my mat, so I'm hoping this is dry, and I'm going to be working with some brown card. So I am going to be applying decorative layers over the top, so I wasn't too tight to getting the shade exactly right. But if you do it in white and then put colour over the top, it can sometimes be a really glaring, obvious sign that you don't quite get it aligned perfectly. So coloured card is a good way to go. I'm going to load my mat. Okay, so we've got our base card, we've got our elements down here. Now I've already saved those to Canvas, so if there are elements that I don't want to cut at this time, we can delete those back out and just bring those back in after. So let's go to edit, and just for now I'm going to take out these two decorative elements here. But I'm going to leave in that extra copy just so that we can kind of strengthen our back panel, because obviously if you put all your design elements on the front panel and nothing on the back, you can end up with a card that is either going to go flat or it's not going to be balanced right, so we can kind of counteract that. I'm going to go into Object Edit, Duplicate 2, so that if you want to do a reinforced for your front panel too, you can do that way. That's just one suggestion. So it really just depends on the thickness of your card. Now, before we go too far, I have a bit of a chunk missing out my card, so I'm just going to do a background scan. So I'm not seeing any comments today at all, so I don't know if this is working. It could just be that it's Streamlabs. I don't know. So let's pop this where we're going to get the most out of our card. So we can always rotate an element if we think that's going to save us more card. So let's try and pop that up there. Oh, that's going to be close. So let's just move that down just a titch. Okay. And let's start that cutting. Now, because we've got that ScanNCut detail, you could go to having the vinyl blade do this bit, but I'm just going to use the standard water blade for today. And off we go. So if you do have any questions, just because I can't see comments, pop them in the chat and I will answer after the live, just because it is obviously having a bit of an issue. And I'm just hoping that you can see this all okay. So once we've done this element here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start working with some self-adhesive cardstock to actually build up the elements of our design. And because we're going to be working with self-adhesive cardstock, you're going to want to cut 2 of everything, but that second copy should be mirrored. So I'm thinking some flowers, some eggs would look really pretty, and we might even sneak in a bunny. So we've got about 4 minutes to go. Hi Mum, you're the first person that I can actually see a comment on. So I have no idea why I can't see comments, or if it's just that nobody's watching. How sad. So far we've designed our Easter basket card, and that's the actual base of it. We've done a reinforced panel that we're going to put on the back too, just so that's kind of keep its shape a little bit better. And then I'll show you the scoring. Hi Penny! And I hope you have nice weather in Florida. It's actually not too bad here today. We're expecting it to be a little bit wetter than what it actually is. So we have sunshine. Okay, so it's just doing its last cut round the outside of the card base. So let me grab our scoreboard and we'll be good to go for the next section. So you're going to need a bone folder and apparently scissors that have a mind of their own. It almost doesn't matter what the measurements are on your scoreboard for this one. Almost. Because we're going to follow what's on the actual card design. So when you're cutting something like this that is very intricate with the black standard auto blade, you are best popping that, pressing that speed right down to that point of cut. Oh, that sounds very warm. We're still only in you know, British spring weather, so we're kind of all over the shop. Yesterday we definitely had your rain. Okay, so we can release our on our mat. So I use a metal spatula just because it's nice and easy to get under the card. And I will change view over so that we can see that close up in a minute. So very quickly, just going to remove the waste off my mat as well. And then we can use that mat again for our next cut. So overhead we go. And so we have our little bit of reinforcement for the back of our card. And we are going to line up our bottom of our curve section before it goes into the straight with our score line, and we can score. We're going to do the same for the other edge and score. Now we need to get a line in the middle, so I'm just going to line that up on my scoreboard and go down the middle. So we've got a score line for the base, then one in the middle that's going to give us a little bit of a hinge. So for this center fold line, we're going to fold textured side together. Okay, and that's about as straight as there we go. Make sure you hold it straight. Don't try and do two things at once. So now we're going to take that next score line and we're going to fold back on itself like so, and we're going to do the same with our score line. And it's a good idea to do both at the same time so you can make sure that you're keeping those handles overlapping, because it's going to be important when we get to finishing off our card. Okay, so we've got our card and you need to decide which is your front and which is your back. Now we are going to be popping a little bit of a Velcro tab in here, but my advice would be don't do that just yet, because you want to make sure that if you are doing different elements that you want to have decorating your basket, you want to have that space free, and then finally do that Velcro dot as the last finishing touch. Decide which is the back and we'll apply our reinforcement. So I'm just going to use a bit of roll-on glue. Doesn't have to be super duper sticky for this bit, but you do want to make sure you get it right up into those corners. So our backing card over the top, try and get lined up. It's a reasonably quick grab on this one, but it gives you a little bit longer time than the 3D PVA that I would usually use for making 3D projects. So that's just something to bear in mind when you're planning your adhesive, is just go for something that gives you a little bit longer work time. Okay, so now obviously at the moment we've got that kind of flat bottom to our card shape, but our reinforcement still has its curve, so you just want to trim that up. Like so. Okay, and if you picture your Velcro dot there, we're going to just pop that there, and we're going to have a little basket that is going to be able to sit up on your desk like so. So then it's just about what you want to put in it and on it. So we still have our handle file as a separate one, we still have our basket as a separate one, and also I was thinking it'd be really nice to do some kind of decorative border to go along here too. So with that in mind, let's pick another colour card. So I'm going to grab some of this nice brownie orange that we used for our bunny yesterday, and not yesterday, Tuesday even. So let's cut those additional pieces. So I'm going to pop that card onto my mat. Go OK. Home to reset and OK, because we don't need that card base anymore and we still have that saved in canvas. So if I enlarge canvas a second and go to display, so we can see that's how it looked on the screen, just so that you can see it a bit more large. So we scored down here, through the middle and down there. So I'm going to hide that top card shape like so, and then we can concentrate on these elements. So we don't need this one either now, so that can go away. And I think I might do my base and my basket in a slightly different colour. So let's hide that for now. So we're just going to concentrate on our handles, and it kind of makes sense to have that kind of as your next step if you want to. And I'm just going to send that across to my machine. So we're going to go to export transfer, OK, and we're going over the internet. Let's go OK, and back across the ScanNCut, and then I can see any comments. So hi Diggs, we're going to go to retrieve data. We've sent it from the cloud, so we can go and retrieve it that way. There's our little handle, and we can drag that up to the top, or we can go over here. So probably over there works out pretty well for the shape of card that I have. Okay, so now I want to add a little bit of a border too. So I'm going to go to add pattern, back to that shaped border again, and we're going to do the same thing. So have that ratio function highlighted, and we're going to go down just over your 10 centimetres. So that it looks like it's actually wrapping around our basket. And we'll go set. Like so. I'm just going to do a background scan. Just so I don't accidentally chop into any of the areas where the card's missing. Okay, so I've probably got room to take that down underneath. Let's move that one just there. I think that's probably going to be spot on. And while I'm here, I'm just going to add a bunny rabbit. So this is where we will go into our designs. And let's go for, might be one in animals. Let's have a look. You never know. Because I just want a very simple little bunny. So we have this one here, but it's quite complex, and I just want a silhouette one. So let's go down to this one. It's got these flowers cut out for him on this particular tab, but it'll do. Spot the bunny. There's the bunny. So that's adhesive. We need to take it down. About that'll do. Okay. Can be a tiny bunny. So at the moment I can't wild it. If I just offset it very slightly, I'm going to go outwards. Okay, so it's going to have that original one still selected. I'm just going to delete that one, and there's my bunny. Nice and easy. And if you want to, you could offset it back in. But for what it is, that'll do. Okay. Although he does look a bit. Let's just do that very quickly. Offset it back. So I'm going to go to -1 now. And again, it's going to have that original still selected, so I can delete that. And bunny lost some weight. Okay, so let's pop them up in there. Okay. Okay again. And we're going to go to cut. I'm going to make the speed just a little bit quicker, just so that we can crack on. Okay. So for those of you that have just joined, so far we have our little Easter basket, and we're just cutting the decorative layers. They're going to be going over the top. Now while that's cutting, I'm just going to quickly grab a dark brown ink pad. And that's just so that I can do a little bit of ink blending. So it's not going to be anything super duper complicated, but it's just enough to kind of give it a little bit of shading. Now I've done all of this cutting at full cut rather than half cut for the self-adhesive card. And that's hopefully so that we can just literally just take it out. Means we're going to be doing some ink blending. It's one of those where you'd rather keep the backing, but we'll see how it goes. Okay. There we go. So we've got our little decorative border that's going to go over the top. And we'll get onto the bunny in a minute. Okay, and we have our little handle. Now there is a little triangle just there, so I'm just going to pop that out. Okay, so let's start off with our border, and I'm just going to do a very light blending. So let's change camera view, always helps. So let me get that a little bit closer for you. So we're just literally going to go over these edges. So I'm going to start off with full kind of pout right on that edge there. Then as the ink starts to kind of run out in a brush, we're going to move further and further in. But you're always going to move your brush from the inside to the outside edge. Now, you can decide which edge is your bottom, and we're going to go along there too. And we don't have to be super duper heavy handed. Okay. So that's going to go there. I still might do a little bit of ink blending on this top edge, but I'm just going to use whatever's left in my brush. You could also go to like a spice marmalade or something like that, where it's going to give a little bit more saturation to your shadow on that top edge. Okay, then we can peel off our backing. As long as you've got at least one good nail left. There we go. And we're going to stick that so that we're going to be going just along this edge here. Now I'm not worrying at this point about doing a mirror for this section, because we're going to be putting lots of elements that can be coming up around here anyway, so chances are all that adhesive is going to be covered. But as you start to do your elements that are tucking inside, then you're going to want to have that kind of duplication going on, so that you are having a non-sticky either front or back, depending on where you're putting your element. So next, let's get a bit of ink onto our handle. So with this one, I'm just going to concentrate on putting it down this centre section first, and that's going to kind of separate our handles so that it actually looks like we have two instead of this one piece. Then we're going to go down the outside. So that's going to shape our handles like so. And do the same down here. and underneath. So we'll see how we go for time on this one, because we've still got a lot of decoration to do. So maybe that I do this in 2 parts. And finally, you're going to want to do a little bit of ink blending on this bottom piece here and on this one here. So it feels like it's tucking back into our main body of our basket. So now we can line that up and it's going to go over the top. So it's a good idea to just check that before you peel off your adhesive and just make sure that you're happy with the colouring. It might be that you get to this point and you think, actually that edge isn't quite dark enough contrast, I might want to put some more on. But that for me is perfect. Okay. Now, if you think that you are going to need an additional copy of any of these elements, but you're not sure, you can always save it the same way. So send it to the cloud. You can bring it back into that same document that you've already got your shaped card base in, and go from there. And there we go. So just line that up so that we get it perfect. And we have the start of our little basket. And again, we can ink blend onto this section too. So if you're looking at it thinking, this looks all lovely and shaded, but that base is looking a little bit flat, let's work with it and we'll just go around the edge. And I'm using walnut stain distress ink, but any sort of dark brown dye ink will work for you. I'm just going to take what's left in the brush around those edges. And there we go. So we have a little bit of ink blending. It's a bit more subtle when it comes on to the darker brown, but that's fine. And there we go. So I'm going to retrieve my bunny just for now. And then we can work on our other elements. So let's just give the bunny a little bit of a cutting makeover, because we took out that floral detail, so it has a bit of a extra bit that goes around that detail to hold it all in place. So it makes sense to just snip that off, and when we're ready we'll be able to put our bunny inside our card like so, which will be cool. So that's just one thing to bear in mind when we're doing our flowers and things, is where you want to put that bunny rabbit. So you don't have to already have stuck it down permanently, but as long as you know where you're going roughly. So let's pop in there. You could also ink blend onto the bunny, but in some ways you might find it pops more just keeping that kind of flat colour. Okay, now I'm going to hop on over to some green. Let's find a nice dark green that we can use for some foliage. This one, and we're going to kind of work with silhouettes for this first bit. So apply your card onto your mat. And I'm almost not going to be tied into thinking about what the final layout is going to be. So let's go back to the machine. I'm just going to go back and I'm just going to save this back to canvas just so I've got a copy of that bunny in case I do need it. And save that border. So cancel and import that back in. Okay. So now we can go OK and reset. I'm going to go into pattern, into border, and let's go down. I want this one that looks like a stem anyway. And rather than worrying about the length of this border this time, we're going to look at the height. So the height is actually the width when you get round the right way for what we want it for. So being nearly 5 centimetres wide is going to be totally overpowering for our little basket. So you're probably going to want to take that down. But this time we're going to keep it in proportion. And let's go to about, maybe a little bit thin. So let's take it down to the same 20. Okay. So straight away you can see that it's going to give you a length of 123 millimeters. So slightly longer than the width of our card. But that means that we can get 2, possibly 3 pieces out of per border. And I'm going to give myself lots of copies of that. So give yourself 4 copies, 5 copies, choice is yours. And add that onto your mat. So there we go. Now if you wanted to, you could merge the 2 together so you get 2 long strips. But for what we're doing, that is absolutely fine. I'm also going to go into add again, pattern, design, and kind of nature. And if we go down a page, you've also got some more leaf designs that we can use. So I'm going to take that one, and again we're going to shrink that down. And it's going to go quite small. So that'll do. And again, let's go for 3 of those because we want to be working in odd numbers. And you can see the size difference. So if you have something where you've got the taller elements, we can put those to the back so they should be slightly smaller in scale. And then as we start to move towards the front, we want to go that a little bit bigger so we can use those bigger leaves. Okay, so this is all going to be coming out of dark green card. If you wanted to go over that with some oxides to kind of do some ink blending, you can do. So I will quickly show that. So let's go OK and cut. This is from a fresh sheet of cards. There's no point doing a background scan. It's not going to benefit you in any way. So let me grab the oxides. So I'm going to grab Mowed Lawn and let's go Twisted Citrus. And you're going to want to have a blending brush. Now with your blending brush for your oxide, you want to keep it separate to the ones that you use for your dye inks or your distress inks, just because with the oxides you have that kind of oxidization effect that can actually transfer to your normal ink pads, which we don't want. So what I'm then thinking is I want to do some flowers and some eggs. Now, if you want to watch a video that goes in a bit more depth about the egg designs on the machine, then I did a shaped card last week where I did the different egg designs. That's good to refer back to. And also do catch up with the two-parter from earlier this week where we did a nice Easter design and using very similar files. So there we go. Any questions while I'm waiting for those to finish cutting? This is a good opportunity to kind of pick my brains if you're having issues with cutting, drawing, using a machine or using canvas. So so far we've learnt how to create our structure in terms of the actual card base, how to create our detailing, and now we're going to go into doing decor and things like shaped flowers. While I'm waiting, I'm going to pop back overhead for a moment. Yeah, it is brilliant for cutting out stamped images. I do it a lot, and it's very tempting to kind of go, well, that's what I use that for, and then, you know, because I also have a silhouette, so it can be tempting to just kind of keep them separate in terms of what they do. But having the designs built into the machine is actually quite a bit of a godsend when it comes to wanting to create designs like this, where you're just going on the fly and going, okay, I just need a, so that rather than having to trawl through your die cuts or your cut files, you can just go, well, actually there's one already in the machine for that. Okay, so we've got our little leaf elements here, and they're all going to be facing the same way. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out the reverse. So there's two ways you could do that. You could flip it all in the machine, or you can just cut from the back. The choice is yours. It really does depend on the material that you're working with. Sometimes cutting from the back is just quicker, especially where you've got like lots of pieces like this. But the benefit doing it from self-adhesive cardstock like this is that it's actually quite quick to just go stick the two together and away you go. While those are cutting, so I'm going to flip these over and cut. I'll carry on doing inking. So I'm just going to go, okay. And then if we go back, go into edit, multi-select, select all, okay, object edit, group and flip, so that we've got everything flipped around the other way. Let's just move that over to the other corner just so it makes a bit more sense in terms of the layout. Okay, okay, okay. There's a lot of OKs on the SDX, not so many on the CM. Okay, so while that's doing that, let's pop this back overhead, and I'm going to start off with the lighter colour first. I'm just going to do very, very light, almost dry brushing, and because we've worked onto texture card, it's just going to kind of make that texture pop a little bit more. So you might see it might just be a little bit too subtle. Let's just get a bit more ink on my brush. There's dry brushing and then there's really dry brushing. Okay. And you will get mucky fingers, especially on something like this where you've got lots of really delicate pieces. And so you can't really pop it down on the glass and just kind of go for it. You kind of got to just tolerate the inkiness. So there are now hundreds of these classes that are on our YouTube channel or our Facebook page that you can catch up with. And they're all lots of different techniques. So one of the ones I want to do next week is doing embroidered cards with the paper piercing, well, piercing I should say. So if you haven't seen the paper piercing kit in action, it's worth a watch, because you may just find it's your new favourite thing to do. It does take a little bit longer than the average. Okay, I'm just going to swap over to mode lawn, just so I get a different tone for these leaves. And you can see I'm not exactly being careful or gentle. As long as you hold that join, you should be alright. You can be quite rough. And same on this side. A little bit more ink. And of course the ones that are going to be on the back, it doesn't matter so much about doing this step. Okay. We're nearly there. Just those last three to do. Then we can start snipping into these and working out how we want to actually use our elements. So if I pop these in here, for instance, we're going to have some elements that are going to just strictly come out of this back section here, some that we might want to put going into the reverse section there, so that we actually have that kind of coming out from our basket. So that's just something to bear in mind in terms of how you want to finish off the card as well. So we can do a liner. So I'm going to start off with those front elements first, so the bigger leaves. And if I only get those done today, then you should be pretty much able to use the same technique for the flowers and the eggs. Okay, so I'm going to peel this one away. I'm going to take one of the ones that I've inked up here, and I am going to just stick 1/2. So I'm going to pop my nail in the way. Got the advantage of a nice long nail on that finger, so I can kind of try and keep the two separate except for where I want them to join. Okay. There we go. So I'm just going to keep this one separate here, so we've got a little bit of a gap and we're joined on this side. We can then go, okay, where do I want this to go? And I'm just going to have that so it's going to stick onto our little arm just there. And we can press that together. So that's going to be stuck front and back. And then we're just ready to stick a flower on top. So let's do that again. Now, if we were to go over here, it's not going to be an exact mirror image, but it's going to look a little bit forced to a certain extent. So I'm going to have that kind of going out this way. So this time it doesn't matter so much about keeping it separate, because there's nothing that we're going to be kind of wrapping around. There we go. There we go. Just get those together. And then we can use some 3D PVA just to stick those in a little bit into our card base. So just going to stick a good dot on the end of my stem, open up my card and pick somewhere where this is going to come out of. There we go. And because we still got that little bit sticky on the back of our border, that's going to give us instant stick while we're also letting that glue to that card base. Okay, so far so good. And next, so one last one for this front section. And I'm going to kind of do this bit opposite to that very first one. So this the left hand side is going to separate this time. Okay, and pop that through. And we can wrap that all the way around and back to that leaf there. Push that down into the base. And then we can always add a little bit extra glue where we need to. So I'm just going to pop a little bit just under that stem, like so. and a little bit under this one here too. So it's going to finish off that front section. So now I'm going to work onto the back. So bear in mind we want our bunny to go about here, so we can just concentrate on this section here and this section here, and hopefully then we should have a bunny that's just peeping through. Okay, so let's go for this one. And all I'm going to do is just grab my scissors and I'm going to snip wherever I think is appropriate. So that one will do. And let's take this out this way, I think. Now I'm going to grab one of our other stems. Check that we've got the right end, because it's quite easy to get mixed up and then you end up with all kinds of weird things going on. So I'm going to peel off the stick of this one too. I have lovely green fingers. I should go and do some gardening. Okay, so let's line that up. Just take your time, because obviously this is now quite a little bit of a fiddly bit, because it is quite a bit more delicate than the average. But just take your time and you get there, like so. And I'm just going to snip that there. So the advantage of doing it this way is that we're getting nice thick pieces that we can actually stick to our card. And let's just pop a little bit of glue on here. And we can go that way. Now if there's any excess, just blot that off and you should be okay. So now I'm going to take this other section that we cut off before, and let's line those two up. So if you wanted to really increase your contrast, you could do the same ink blending again, but this time go with a darker green around the base of your leaves. I'm just going to grab a little bit of a pokey tool, because you might find that you get occasional little bits stuck in of your release paper. You can just pop that through. Now, just for speed, as I'm aware that, time is nearly up for today, I'll pop in our bunny as well, so you can see that in situ. So let's have a look from the front. So we've got kind of this going on, and the idea is that we'll infill these gaps with our stems, and then it's up to you where you want to put your bunny. If you want to tuck it inside the front here, then we can do that, and it will just go in there. You can peek through from behind the handle, or we can put him on this base bit here, so that when it opens up, you might get a little bit of a hint of a bunny ear, but then when you open, there's the bunny. The choice is yours. So I'm just going to peel that away, and we can stick them on there. Like so. Don't forget to cut the other one, and you can always have him kind of floating on the back for the bunny rabbit. Everything else you want kind of tucked away, but the bunny you can kind of get away with having twice. So there we go. So now it's just flowers and stems all the way, and I've got quite a few to place. So I think what I'll do is for today I'll call it a day, carry on placing these in and also doing the flowers and the Easter eggs, and then you can see how it all goes together at the end. Take care for now, and I will see you on Tuesday at 11. Take care. Bye.